All Progressive Congress in Rivers State on Sunday called on Governor Siminalayi Fubara to respect last week's judgment of the Supreme Court, which declared it is illegal to run local government areas with caretaker committees. This was as one of the replaced local government chairmen, Olabari Mate Olo, said the Supreme Court's judgment had paved the way for the local government chairmen to return and enjoy the 6-month tenure extension granted them by the State House of Assembly. The 23 local government secretariats in Rivers State have been under police occupation since June 16, when the tenure of the elected chairman ended. They had attempted to stay in office for an extra 6 months, citing a recent law by the State Assembly, but Governor Fubara resisted the move and appointed caretaker committees to man the local government secretariats pending the conduct of the local government election in October. The police, however, took over the local government secretariats, preventing neither the ex-local government chairman nor the caretakers appointed by Fubara to gain access. The Inspector General of Police, Olukayode Ebotokun, said the local government secretariats will remain under police occupation pending the decision of the court on the matter. Last week, ruling on a suit filed by the federal government against the 36 states, the Supreme Court declared the use of a caretaker committee to run local government as illegal. Speaking to our correspondent on Sunday, the Publicity Secretary of the Rivers APC Caretaker Committee, Chibuike Ikenga, called on Fubara to obey the Supreme Court to disband the council caretakers that he constituted. Ikenga said for far too long, governors have been usurping the powers of the local government and shortchanging them in the disbursement of funds. He said, "We are aware, particularly in Rivers State, that Governor Fubara does not obey laws, he doesn't obey court judgments, neither does he obey the constitutional prescriptions and provisions, so we will not be surprised. It is important to note that the Court of Appeal gave a judgment and said that the same day Governor Fubara came on air to say that he does not recognize any other person other than his selected Okojombo and a committee of friends as the leadership of the House of Assembly. And he said that the House of Assembly members are gone, irrespective of the position of the Court of Appeals judgment." Let me start with you, Associate Professor Warner. What is your take on this story?
Well, it's quite obvious that in this part of the globe, we have strong men and not strong institutions. By that I mean, you have leaders who actually violate court decisions and rulings with impunity, all in the bid to actually satisfy their personal selfish interests. We are aware of the fact that the judiciary is one of the arms of the government, and by the theory of separation of power, should operate independently without any encroachment by the other tiers of government, other organs of government. But from what is happening, it appears that the judiciary has now become the endangered species and has become tools in the hands of the executive arm of government particularly. I mean, if a court has given order, it is expected in a sane environment, in a condition where laws are obeyed, that everybody, irrespective of your position, and that is part of the tenets of this rule of law. So we are not surprised, personally I'm not surprised, that it appears rather than politics revolve around strong institutions, we have politics now revolving around strong personalities, where they now flout court rulings with impunity. And what that means is that governance will become very arbitrary, rather than have governance anchored on constitutionalism. You now have governance, anchored on the whims and caprices of leaders. And of course, the bottom line is that it's going to affect negatively on the masses, to the extent that rather than expect good governance, they have this kind of bad governance that adversely affect their welfare. And so it becomes very, very important that leaders should try and see how they can obey court laws, and of course confirm. Of course, there is also punitive measure to that effect, and that also explains the weakness of the judiciary, because if somebody violates the law, and we are aware of the fact that court ruling forms part of the case law, it's one of the sources of our laws. So if somebody by that act violates the law, there's also a punitive measure. Like I said, that again also explains the weakness of the Constitution, and then of course the executive in terms of enforcement of these court decisions and laws made by the judiciary. So it appears, like I said, the judiciary is an endangered species now.
Would the executive implement court rulings or orders when it doesn't favor them? Exactly.
That's why I expressed the fear that you have different organs of government performing different functions. The executive is there to implement, but this same executive already is biased and has taken sides, and so you find a situation where such court rulings and laws, in as much as it does not favor the actors of the state within the confines of the executive arm of government, they tend to pretend, they tend to also take such laws into their hands. And of course, nothing happens to them because they are the ones that are supposed to enforce those constitutions. But unfortunately, they are taking sides. They are being obsessed by their, personal whims and caprices. So the judiciary seem to be very, very, very disadvantaged in that regard.
All right.
Because rather than enforce their rulings and court judgments and all that, the executive arm has already been biased to that effect.
Okay. Ndamzi, what is your take on this matter?
Yes, the call, it's a legitimate one because the Supreme Court is the final court of the land, and it has given its final judgment. And a sane society is expected that rules and laws are obeyed. All right? So now, what, in my opinion, the Supreme Court have just done is to interpret Section 162 of the Constitution.
Okay.
Talks about the state joint account and all that. And the Supreme Court went ahead to declare formation of caretaker committees illegal and unconstitutional. So in the interest of good governance in the country, my advice would be that the governors should obey the judgment in its entirety. They should, the caretaker committees, wherever they are, whether in Rivers State and other states not mentioned, okay, they should hand over to their head of personnel management or head of local government administration, as the case may be, and possibly plan for election in those affected areas, other than still allowing the caretaker committees to be enforced. That will be aberration and disobedience to court order.
Right. Now, there are concerns by certain people, certain individuals are critiquing the Supreme Court judgments. Now, the first concern was that the Supreme Court has arrogated to itself powers to set aside the Constitution. And they were talking from the angle of the JAC, the joint account with the state and local governments. Now, they said that is embedded in the Constitution, and the state is empowered by the Constitution to receive monies and then, disburse it to the states. But in this instance, the Supreme Court set aside that particular law and then gave instruction that monies be remitted from federal government directly to the local government. So there were concerns around that area that the Supreme Court has not acted in line with Nigerian Constitution. What is your reaction to that?
Yes, my reaction to that would be that, number one, the Supreme Court is duty-bound to interpret every section of the Constitution, and they have interpreted that Section 2 subsection 6, which is very particular about the state joint local government accounts. Now, the Constitution in that section allows for joint account and disbursement of these funds. And the law never says withhold these funds.
Okay.
And you know, the governors have abrogated so much powers to themselves. They can withhold the funds at will. They even make decisions for the local government authorities, which shouldn't be so. The Constitution simply separates powers of the executive, the judiciary, and the National Assembly. Then on principle of federalism, you now see we have the federal government, we have the state government, and we have the local government, which has its own constitutional backing. But because of want of control, greed, and abuse of power, you see the governors withholding their funds at will. A local government chairman who is not in the good books of the governor, they may just, through the state assembly, suspend the person and withhold the funds for reasons best known to them. And also, we have advocated severally that Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution should be thoroughly amended. That is where the governors think they have powers to act unlawfully. So now that the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land, empowered to interpret the law, they have interpreted this section that deals with the JAC and have went ahead to say caretaker committees are unconstitutional. So if the governors think in their own way that they are not comfortable with what the Supreme Court have done, all they could do is, by way of procedure, apply to the Supreme Court to interpret properly
the Constitution.
The Constitution, you know,
with regards to
no, the JAC is already clear. The court have said that section is unconstitutional. And don't forget, the Supreme Court have the powers to declare any section of the law null and void.
Now, this answer you gave me was what I was waiting for.
Okay.
I wanted to know if Supreme Court has the powers,
yes,
to declare any part of Nigerian Constitution.
Yes, of course.
Null and void.
Yes, now that they have interpreted Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution, it will be proper and wise for our lawmakers, the National Assembly, to delete that section of the law.
Now, if the Supreme Court has the powers to declare any part of Nigerian Constitution null and void, why then do the National Assembly, why do they need to go through another procedure to strike it out?
Yes, it is proper to do that. Don't forget, like for practice purposes, we lawyers, we have the Constitution that we quote in court and in other gatherings. Then now, the Supreme Court have said this section is unconstitutional.
Okay.
What they have just done is to interpret properly that section that deals with the JAC. So having done that, it is needworthy to be there. So the National Assembly, while the ongoing review is the review of Constitution, they should strike out that section of the Constitution. And in addition...
And if the National Assembly fails to do that?
No, definitely procedurally they will.
They are bound by law.
Yes, they are bound by law to do that, because such law is no more in existence. So we don't need it anymore in our...
So whenever anybody takes the governors to court with respect to the JAC, they will quote the precedents, the judgments.
Yes, of course.
It becomes a precedent.
It becomes a precedent and it remains.
All right. Now, another conundrum I would want you to answer is, you recall that already the National Assembly had already made moves to amend the local government law and have sent it out to the states for ratification. Now, according to the Constitution, the third majority of the state houses of assembly must ratify that bill for that bill to be passed into law. Now, part of the things that were included in that ratification had to do with caretaker chairman being illegal and the INEC conducting council elections instead of the state INEC and all of that. If part of the prayers of the Attorney General to the Supreme Court was also in that amendment bill. Now, the question is, if that amendment bill fails ratification for the umpteenth time by the state houses of assembly, what is the future?
Thank you very much. We should not forget that laws are made by the people to control the affairs of the community. If a law which is intended to bring about sanity and peace in the society, and the people whom that law is intended to be made for rejects it, ordinarily what happens? The law cannot stand. So the way to go about it is simple. The presidency can send in a bill to the National Assembly amending that section that gives powers to the houses of assembly for ratification.
An executive bill.
Yes, if that is done and ratified by both houses of National Assembly,
yes,
the president signs it into law and it becomes
and
law.
it will set aside the prerequisite, the constitutional prerequisite for state assemblies to ratify.
Exactly.
All right.
So it's just a process.
Could it be that the political class know what to do, but then they are giving Nigerians reason to talk?
We are already abreast with the actions and inactions of politicians. What they do only favors them. Okay? In Nigeria, they don't think about, as far as I'm concerned, the leaders, they don't care about the people.
All right.
They don't care about the people. The National Assembly knows what to do. The presidency knows what to do. And I thank God, the Supreme Court have given this landmark judgment that is gladdening the hearts of Nigeria, because this judgment will lead to bringing about development in our various communities.
And the grassroots.
And it will also set out higher standards and responsibility for the local government chairman. That is to say, you receive money from the fiscal account direct to you, then EFCC is watching. They need to brace up and start using the funds.
When you say EFCC is watching, one would wonder, the state governors, the ex-governors that have had anti-graft cases, how many have been convicted? So when you say EFCC is working, don't we have a constitutional problem when it comes to anti-graft agencies in Nigeria?
We know, fighting corruption, it's a difficult thing all over the world. Okay. It is not easy to fight corruption. Don't forget that those that are involved in corrupt practices are strong men. Like Prof said earlier, that we have strong men against strong institutions. But I believe that with the right laws and the good leadership in place, institutions will be strengthened.
All right.
And we will get it right someday.
All right. Associate Prof Warner, what is the way forward at this point?
Well, I think that it's often said that he who goes to equity must go with clean hands. I mean, the governors are crying now because the Supreme Court has given the judgment. But which law authorized them to appoint caretaker committees? Which law authorized them to withhold funds to local government? So you see, it borders on the fact that, our leaders are just there probably for their personal interests, parochial interests. And that is why they see the state and its institutions as being sort of amassing weight for themselves. And that's basically the problem we have in this part of the globe.
Do you actually see the governor disbanding the caretaker committees like the APC have called him to do?
Yeah, I think so. If the law-abiding citizens of this country
I mean, Rivers State Governor, right?
Yeah, why not?
You see him disbanding?
Yeah, he should. He's amenable to the laws of the land.
Has he obeyed the laws so far in your
Well,
opinion?
we are watching. It's just about, it's not a week or 2 weeks since the Supreme Court gave that ruling. So we are watching. And the hands of law will catch up on those who disobey the laws of the land. And I think that the federal government will not sit back. The administration of Tinubu will not sit back and watch state governors mesmerize their renewed hope agenda for the people by way of scuttling, that process. So I think that the federal government will do the needful to ensure that the law takes its course with regard to governors who flout this ruling of the Supreme Court. I mean, the highest court of the land. So they are going to do the needful, and I think that it is in the best interest of the people. The local government is a government that is closer to the people. If you look at the federalism configuration of this country, we just decided to add the local government just to enhance decentralization, to bring government closer to the people. So if that is the case, and somebody somewhere, because of personal interest, trying to scuttle and undermine that process, I think we all rise to the occasion and ensure that the law takes its right course in that
Have you
regard.
seen Nigerians rising to the occasion?
Well, that's the problem.
Standing up to
yeah, you see,
politicians.
Exactly. I said it last time when I was here, that we have a situation where there is prebendal politics going on, given the exigencies of the moment, given the fact that the people at the local level, most of them appear to be docile. Also on the fact that they also have their personal interests. Most of the people at the grassroots don't even consider that the fact that policies and laws of government will eventually affect them in the long run. They seem to be, looking at the immediate gain they will have, personal immediate gain. And so they can support any leader provided their personal interests, are being protected. And it's against the interests of generality of the people. So mobilization to that becomes a problem until we as a people, decide to actually ensure that rather than protect our personal interests, we should endeavor to also protect the interests of generality of people with regard to laws and rules and decisions made, with regard to our own welfare. So it's something we need to appeal to our minds. We need to reconscientize our mind. We need to proselytize the minds of people. We need to restructure the mindset of Nigerians. In fact, Nigerians need to restructure because they have seen it that, look, in spite of the fact that you have your personal interests protected, you may also be affected in one way or the other. Look at the issue of insecurity. So if you grab all the wealth in Nigeria, all the money, you are not also safe. You are not also safe. So we should look beyond our personal interests to also consider the fact that, look, we are a people in a polity. And by that, there should be a mechanism where, whatever affects one should affect the other. Injury to one, the way we say in our labor or something. Injury to one is injury to all. So we should begin to see things from that perspective.
All right. Ndamze, very quickly, do you see the governor disbanding caretaker committees in Rivers State?
Well, with the history we know about the governors in Nigeria, they are known to be disobedient to court orders. But this will be a test case. This will be a test case, knowing that the governor is a young man and he appeared polished. So we want to challenge him.
Has he been obeying, in the recent Rivers State crisis, has he been obeying court orders?
Well, let's limit
or you think this one would be different?
Yes, let's look at it this way. The order is emanating from the highest court of the land.
All right.
Let us give him the benefit of doubt, like Prof alluded that, the judgment came a few days ago. We are all watching. Good. So let's believe that in the interest of the state, that the governor will obey the court order.
All right.